All right. I now call the July 7th, 2020 regular meeting of the City Council to order. Our invocation tonight is going to be given by our police chaplain, Brian Nevins. If you'd like to come to the podium.
Hello, there we go. Thank you. If you would join me in prayer, please. Beloved God, in recognition of the recent celebration of our independence, we ask that you teach us the true principles of independence and freedom, both of our country and your kingdom. Please put it into our hearts to protect and preserve the rights that our very own founding documents proclaim came from you. The same rights that so many men and women have died to protect and preserve in our own city and abroad. And for that, we honor them in your presence and thank you for them. You indeed know about sacrificing your son for the sake of others. We ask that our city officials would be just as protective of our rights and take their responsibilities to the residents of the Friendship City with the gravity and wisdom they need and deserve. In your word, you promised that if any need wisdom, to simply ask, and you will give it generously. Therefore, we pray for Mayor Fetty, for our city manager, Mr. Kramer, and for this assembled council. We thank you for their service and are asking that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our time, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our citizens, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement, personal peace in their lives and joy in their task. I pray for the agenda set before them today. Please give an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around our beloved city of Erlanger. And it is in your most blessed name that I pray. Amen.
Okay, Mrs. Hoffman, if you can take roll, please.
Mr. Cahill. Miss Kyle. Mr. Skidmore. Miss Sudkamp.
Here.
Miss Cahill.
Here.
Mr. Meyer.
Present.
Miss Skidmore. Here. Miss Pitts.
Here.
Mr. Nicely. Miss Reckers.
Here.
Mr. Hermes.
Here.
Thank you, Mrs. Hoffman. You've all received a copy of the minutes from the June 2nd, 2020 regular council meeting and the June 16th, 2020 special council meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to be made at this time? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion that we adopt as presented. Mr. Hermes, and seconded by Ms. Sedkamp. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, you've also received a copy of the agenda for this evening's meeting. Are there any additions to be made at this time? Okay, I'll entertain a motion that we adopt this agenda as presented. Mrs. Sedkamp and Mr. Meyer. Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, our first special presentation of this evening is Mr. William Duvall, who is going for his Eagle Scout. So he is going to talk to us a little bit about issues that face veterans.
Thank you for having me. So, of course, veterans are the brave men and women that have fought for our nation to defend our rights and freedoms that we very much enjoy today. Although many suffer from a variety of things, and 52% of them say that the government has not done enough to help them post-combat or at duty. So as you said, yeah, my name's William Duvall. I'm going for my Eagle Scout, and for my project, I'm raising awareness of veterans' needs, some of the issues that they face, and I'm also building a wheelchair ramp for a disabled veteran at his home here in Erlanger. So first of all, there are substance use disorders. Compared to non-veterans, veterans are far more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol. In fact, 11% of all the veterans that go through the VA are diagnosed with some form of substance use disorder. Many VA centers do offer treatment, but a lot of veterans still don't have access to such treatment because they could live too far away or something of that manner. Some of the treatments, they're of course treated at a professional level. They will be treated through things like detoxification, psychological therapy, or being taught coping mechanisms. It's very important, though, that they also have a social support network and that they have people there to support them and believe in them so that they may make a recovery. Unemployment. As of 2019, there were 284,000 unemployed veterans in America. 28 of them say that they have some sort of combat-related disability that has prevented them from getting a job. And unemployment puts many at risk of poverty, homelessness, or crises of meaning that can lead to depression or anxiety. There's many organizations that help or try to solve this problem. Hiring Our Heroes, for example, they are a national job fair. They try to help military members and their spouses find employment. Since 2015, they've helped 500,000 veterans find employment. There's also the Veterans Job Mission that works with over 200 companies to match veterans with their skills and ability, and they've helped 600,000 people find employment. And then there's finally Veterans on Wall Street. It's a large group of institutional lenders like Goldman Sachs and Bank of America that train them to work in the financial industry. Veterans account for 11% of the U.S. homeless population. There is approximately 1.4 million veterans at risk of homelessness. That is largely due to poverty or lack of support network. In fact, in 1987, the VA began working with local communities to try and reduce the number of homeless veterans. And since then, since 2005, they brought the number of homeless veterans down by over 70%. But the Department of Housing and Urban Development estimates that there may be as many as 40,000 homeless veterans on any given day. Ways you can help support emergency shelters in the community by giving time, items, or non-perishable food. You can join or help volunteer for the Wounded Warrior Project, which helps to build houses for disabled or veterans. And then there's many VA services that they could be eligible for. 20% of veterans have a service-related disability, and these could be anything from TBI, which is traumatic brain injury, to diabetes or amputation. It's important that these veterans have adapted homes to fit their needs. Veterans that suffer from service-related injuries may qualify for a VA housing grant to modify their home to better accommodate them. And then there's the Disabled Americans Charity, which helps to primarily rehabilitate disabled veterans. As far as mental health goes, in 2018, 1.7 million veterans were treated at the VA for a mental health disorder. And of course, as I previously mentioned, not all veterans have easy access to a VA facility. So they may suffer from something like PTSD, schizophrenia, or anxiety. If any veteran is suffering from a mental health disorder, they should be aware of the suicide hotline. There are many organizations that provide them with a bit of a social support network so they can overcome this, such as the VFW, the American Legion, or the Iraqi and Afghanistan Veterans of America. I encourage them to seek professional help. Don't wait and don't be afraid to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Now, do you mind coming back up for just a second? I'm sorry. I should have caught you. Can you tell us a little bit about your project?
Right, so my Eagle project is a little unusual in the fact that, Eagle projects are normally physical structures that are built to help a community. I'm doing something a little different. I'm trying to raise awareness of veterans issues within many communities in Northern Kentucky. I've spoken here tonight. I'm probably going to be speaking to the Boone County government or the Florence government soon. But I'm also, every project needs a physical aspect to it, and so I'm building a wheelchair ramp for a disabled veteran on Center Street here in Erlanger, and that's the bulk of the project.
Okay. Do you have help? Do you need any help with building the ramp? Do you need materials or anything that I can connect you with resources? There's all kinds of amazing resources out there. So if you need any guidance or help.
Right, so of course, every bit of help is great to have. We still have to finalize the plans for the ramp and get the permit approved and all that. But once we do that, we should have a better idea of what resources we need and how much manpower it's going to require. I've had a lot of friends and fellow scouts that have offered to help. But like I was saying, anything monetary, physical, or manpower would be helpful.
Okay, great. Thanks, William. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, our next special presentation is the retirement of Mr. Todd Rice. So if you'd like to meet me up at the flags. Okay, so we have a proclamation for Sergeant Rice. To all to whom these presents shall come. Whereas Todd Rice began his public service career at the age of 16, and in the summer of 1984, Todd Rice graduated with a degree in police administration and later from the Department of Criminal Justice Training, Class 160. And on March 14, 1987, Todd Rice moved from Richmond to Erlanger to start his long and successful career with the Erlanger Police Department. In 1998, Todd Rice was accepted and graduated from the Administrative Office course, class of 1999, at the University of Louisville. During his career, he was promoted numerous times. In 2003, Todd Rice was promoted to lieutenant in patrol and continued in his position until his first retirement in 2007. During retirement, he knew his true calling was in police work. In 2008, Todd Rice returned to the Erlanger Police Department and later promoted to sergeant. As the community resource officer, he has been heavily involved in the community. He has been instrumental in several programs that include Coffee with a Cop, Fill a Cruiser, and reorganization of the Citizens Police Academy. The mayor of Erlanger, Kentucky, congratulates Todd Rice on his retirement and thank him for his dedication, service, wisdom, and friendship. Now, therefore, I, Jessica Fetty, mayor of the city of Erlanger, Kenton County, Kentucky, do hereby proclaim July 8th, 2020 to be Todd Rice Day in Erlanger and do commend this observance to all our citizens, given under my hand and the seal of the city of Erlanger on this day, July 7th, 2020.
So here we are tonight celebrating probably what we all, I think, would consider, especially these guys back here on the back wall, as Todd Rice being the most imitated but never duplicated officer that Erlanger has ever seen. Anybody in here has a Todd Rice story, and when they tell it in the Todd Rice accent. Todd, what can you say? He has been in this city providing a service to our citizens for 33 years. That's absolutely incredible. Todd, I'm sitting here, I was reading through his bio that I asked him to do the other day, and what Todd has done, what he has accomplished, what he has been involved in over his career in just the city of Erlanger is amazing. Todd has done it all. He's been a member of the command staff. He has reorganized FTO. He has, I mean, the list of accomplishments is just incredible. Then he didn't have enough, and he had to come back after he retired and started down the same path and did it all again. I think from my time knowing Todd, I can honestly say that he is one of the most trustworthy, appreciative, down-to-earth people that I have ever met. In this career, we unfortunately see it from time to time. This career can take its toll on people. Todd Rice is the same Todd Rice that he was when he started. Super guy, Todd, thank you so much for your service to the city. Please, I beg you, do not be a stranger. I'm gonna let you, I told Todd before this started, I said, this is your night. I want you to get up there, tell the people everything it is that you want them to know, and don't regret that you didn't say something as you walked out of the city. So Todd, it's all you.
Well, I hope not to take too much of your time tonight. I appreciate everybody here that came tonight, the ones that could come, and even the ones that can't. There's a lot of people I'd like to thank, and of course, I'm not going to mention everybody because I just can't. I mean, there's so many people been involved in my life over the years in this city. It's just unbelievable. I talked to the staff a couple weeks ago and talked about how I grew up in southeastern Kentucky. I spent the first 18, 19 years of my life in southeastern Kentucky in Clay County, which I'm very proud of being from Manchester and Clay County. But I have been in my current home with my wife, the house that we purchased in 1998. I've been there longer, 22 years, than I was ever anyplace else in my entire life. But I've been, you know, this is my home. 33 years is Erlanger's my home. So, again, there's been a lot of people that's made it possible for me to have a long, successful career here with the city of Erlanger. And I appreciate each and every one of you, even if I don't name everybody. So first of all, the first person I want to thank is my teammate, most important teammate, is my wife, Pam. Pam, you step forward, please. We've been together over 33 years. We've been married over 33 years, and we've been together for longer than that. I love you, and I thank you for all your support throughout the years. She's made a lot of sacrifices so I could do what I've loved to do all this time. I also like to recognize my children who have given up so much of their birthdays, their holidays, school events, family events, and just in general, the time that they missed with me being on the job. They put up a lot, and they lost a lot because of that. My daughter Raven, Jeffrey, my son Nathan, and my other daughters Serena, Emma, and Georgia. Without them, without their support, I'd never had this career, and I love each and every one of them. I know both my granddaughters are here tonight, Makara and Hannah, so they're an important part of my life as well. You're never successful without other people and their support. And there's other people, you know, that are obvious, and then there's people behind the scenes that you never know about. Without these people, I would never made it as far as I had. So if I neglect to mention somebody, please don't hold it against me, because there's just too many people for me to mention. There's a couple of people, my mother-in-law and another classmate of mine that went through class 160 when we went to police academy, named Randy Maines, who sent me a letter from the classified ad from the Dixie News. Some of you know what the Dixie News is. Some of you aren't old enough to know. But there's a little square about that big sent to me. It said, hey, Erlanger Police is hiring. It's a good department to be with. You ought to go. And that was in 1987. So sure enough, I sent in my application. And Chief Ken Yaden who was the chief at the time, hired me with the approval of the city council at that time and Mayor Fred Thomas. I thank them very much for that opportunity. Second of all, Chief Greg Sandel. He was promoted after Chief Yaden, and Chief Sandel promoted me to sergeant on my first go-around. I was the first police officer with the city of Erlanger that ever attended the Southern Police Institute, which is in Louisville, Kentucky, conducted by the University of Louisville. I was in the 99th Administrative Officers course, which is a leadership course for administrators in police work. They're internationally renowned. Of course, it's on the University of Louisville's campus, which it's quite a bit smaller than the prestigious FBI Academy, but nonetheless, we at the SPI consider that the class that you actually go to attend to study. The FBI all go to parties. So. But anyways, I spent my time down there and I enjoyed that. Thank you, Chief Sandel. I also want to mention my buddies, and some of them are here tonight, and we all grew up together. One was one that I've known longer than any of them is Chief Spike Jones. Where are you at, Spike? There, here he is. Spike and my wife and I all went to college at Eastern, so we've known each other for about 36 or 37 years, whatever it's been. It's been a long time. Great friendship. The other people I grew up with, former Chief Mark Fields, he's someplace back there, Tim Thames, Scott Abney, I don't know if he's here or not, Bob Aarons, Kevin Gilpin. We all grew up together. We started in this department together. Although I think Scott's probably going to have the longest tenure of an employee with the city of Erlanger's Police Department, I'm going to claim the longest police officer serving full-time with the city of Erlanger. I think Scott's got 40 years, but he's been part-time and dispatcher part of that time. But I've been here full-time as a police officer for over 33 years. Nothing to take away with Scott, though. Mark Fields, been a big buddy of mine. Been together through a lot. He eventually was promoted to chief, and when he was promoted to chief, he brought me along with his command staff and made me a lieutenant. I was allowed to retire in 2007 in good graces, and with the blessing of Mayor Tom Rouse and the city council at that time, some of them are still here, and CAO Shire, I was allowed to return in July of 2008 to the city of Erlanger as a police officer. I spent most of my time in Crescent Springs until I got promoted, and after that I was given the opportunity to go into the Community Resource Department, or Community Resource under Chief Tony Wilson, who was on his way out, while Chief Todd Brendel, who's in the back here, was becoming chief at that time. And Chief Brendel gave me the reins and allowed me to do some stuff with the Community Resource Office, and I think it's been good for me, and I hope it's been good for the city, because we had a lot of good programs, and I think they benefited the community, especially during these times. There's several other people I'd want to thank. Some of these people you don't know. Most of them aren't here. Some of them are not even with us anymore. But I won't go into the different reasons, but Lieutenant Bob Douglas, Lieutenant Ben Gilbert, Sergeant Tom Lowe Sr., his son works here now, but Sr. led me in a lot of good directions. Sergeant Mike Mann, Sergeant Mike Steffen, and Officer Tad Lanehart. Others to include troopers that I grew up with in my hometown that formed part of my formative years, and especially my cousin, who's a retired police chief of Manchester, Kentucky, Dennis Rice. These people, along with others, really formed who I am today. There's many other contributed to my successful career. My parents, and I want to thank all those who are present, and former city leaders. Lastly, the most important thing I want to do right now is I'd like to recognize all the current officers and support staff of the city of Erlanger Police Department. Could all of you kind of step forward here? The police officers, please. This is not a chastise, so if I come out wrong, don't believe it. I beg the citizens and the city leaders to continue to support these great people. It's not just the police officers. We're the ones under attack right now, but all the city employees, I want to include them, fire, public works, everyone. But right now, I'm specifically talking about the police officers. Please support these great people. The city of Erlanger and its leaders and citizens have always supported us, and I hope that will continue to stand, that you will continue to stand for these men and women in the future. They are what stands between good and evil. They are safeguarding our future. Thank you for everything.
Okay. Next on the agenda is comments of those other than council members. Okay, there's none today. All right, so mayor's report. I'll keep it brief. So we just heard from Todd and his retirement, and what an amazing person he is. What an amazing career he has had here in the city. And we all received an email within the last couple of days announcing another retirement. And it's our Economic Development Director, Dave Hahn. And I just want to express how much it's been a pleasure getting to know you. And you've been not only Matt's right hand, but when he's my right hand, you're my left. So I value you so much. So let's give a round of applause for Mr. Dave Hahn. But we still have you for a few more months. Okay. All right, we have Mr. Kramer. Do you have anything to report?
I do, thank you. The staff has been working with the new budget that was passed last month and making plans for implementation of that. So that's ongoing with the staff this month. Kevin Burke was not able to be here tonight, but we do have hopefully he'll be able to make it in August so we can recognize his service, and we've got a small presentation for him. I just want to kind of let everybody know that. There's a lot of stuff I haven't had time to send out in emails this week. The Museum Depot, the Historical Society was able to get a volunteer to be able to open the museum on Saturdays from 1 to 5 p.m. And they're going to be doing that every Saturday from the July 11th, which is this weekend, through the summer and the fall. So that's exciting news that they were able to do that. The Grand Garden Estates, I'm sure some of you heard, but last night the city of Edgewood voted to overturn KCPC's recommendation of approval. So we discussed with the developer today, and due to Edgewood's decision, they're currently in a kind of a holding pattern to determine what their options are. So we'll be providing that once we get more information and they determine how they're going to move forward with that change. So they're asking for no action right now from the city of Erlanger until they look into it more. Strategic advisors, email was sent out this week. The staff's been working with them to create procedures for them to operate our social media sites, as well as writing articles and promoting the city in other ways. One part of that is setting up a crisis management plan, and I'm excited to start that next week. It's something I've been wanting to do since I started here, and we're finally going to be able to do that. So that's definitely progressing, and they've been working with individual departments to kind of see how that new role that they're taking on is going to work. But it's been very positive so far. Foreclosure updates, everything's been halted right now. So until the state of emergency has been lifted by the state of Kentucky, then we won't have any other foreclosures at this time. The only other thing we're working on is the residential rental registry. The last 6 months, staff and I have been working on updating that to make it a much more usable form. So that'll be going out to current people on the list, and then we'll be working to find others that are renting throughout the city so we can make sure that we have their contact information. Pending anybody's questions, that's all I have.
Okay. Mr. Gatlin?
Just a few things, Mayor. There's quite a bit of legislation on tonight. I think most of the municipal orders kind of speak for themselves. We are doing the second reading of the amended outdoor seating ordinance, and just kind of as a refresher, that's not changing anything. That was just fixing a clerical error of what we already passed back in December. And then we are doing the first reading of the pay scale, as well as a first reading of reducing the size of the TIF in the Houston Road, Erlanger Road development area. And again, to kind of refresh, this was sort of a joint decision by the developer, Jim Parsons, who's the attorney that helped us with it, and also represented the developer and the city, that it just, because of the overwhelming success of that development, that reducing the size of the TIF was actually in the best interest of everybody. The final thing that's kind of at the end, and I don't know if Mr. Kramer wants to mention it, the interlocal agreement with Erlanger, Ellesmere, and the Ellesmere School District. This is just a repeat of what we pass each year. There's really no changes. It just allows the SRO program in the Erlanger, Ellesmere schools. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Glenn? Have a report on capital projects.
All right, thank you, Mayor, Council. Always appreciate this opportunity to talk about Public Works. First thing up is Parks. Public Works purchased two pieces of playground equipment for Misty Creek Park out of last year's budget, and it was delivered at the end of June. So we have two pieces of equipment, one for 2 to 5-year-olds, and then from 5 to 12-year-olds. And the installation of that will be coming up yet this construction season. Another park project that we have going on right now is the reconstruction of the fishing pier out at Flagship Park. It's kind of a unplanned project that we kind of stumbled on. We had some rotten wood and some of the boards that we noticed, and we knew that was needing some replacement. But once we kind of dug into it, we realized that the rot was far more extensive than we thought. So it's been completely reconstructed. Street projects that are coming up, we're opening bids next Friday, which is July 17th, for our street capital projects for this upcoming year. Valleywood Court, which will be new concrete replacement and all new sidewalks. Carriage Hill, which will also be all new concrete and all new sidewalks. Delphi and Mesa Drive will just be total concrete replacement and sidewalk improvements. The last thing I want to talk about is over this past year, we've been working with PDS on completing a comprehensive street inspection and sidewalk inspection program. And they have finished it in the last month, and about 3 weeks ago, we met and kind of went over all the data. And this will be the new baseline that we use for our upcoming street infrastructure forecasting. So now we have a good comprehensive database that we can look at both geographically and in a data format to see what condition our streets really are at. Every street, they laid eyes on it and rated it according to a national standard. And so we'll be able to use this data to help better tune our 5-year and 10-year plan for street improvement projects. And I think it'll help us better answer any questions from the residents that have questions when and why our streets being completed. And that's all I have.
Mayor, I have one. It has been brought to our attention that we have missed an item on the agenda, and I'm disappointed in Mr. Meyer in not bringing this to our attention. We are supposed to tonight have the second reading of the RV ordinance, so I don't know if someone wants to make a motion to add that to the agenda or if we just want to push it to the next meeting. So
Okay, thank you, Peter.
I'm sorry, Peter. Sometimes we get texts up here while other people are talking about further items on the agenda. I apologize.
All right, so we have a motion to add by Corinne. Okay, and Gary to second. All in favor that we add this item to the agenda? Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, thank you for that housekeeping issue, folks. Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. Does anybody have questions for Mr. Glenn? All right. Okay, reports on task forces. I'll just briefly talk. We had a summer send-off task force meeting today. We talked about some additional safety procedures that we're going to be putting in place. We're still working out the minute details about that, but we are moving forward. So September 19th, 2020, we're making that decision based on a lot of the surrounding cities, including Edgewood and Independence, are still having their city functions. They are having their concert series, and this is a very similar type event. We are still working through some of the safety precautions, and we get new sponsorships on a daily basis. So if anybody's interested in sponsoring or volunteering or being an art and craft vendor, we are still looking for people. Any other items?
Yeah, I apologize for not making it to the last meeting, but we did have a facilities task force meeting. We did meet with all the department heads with with the person that we're using as a resource for that. And I did come up with some findings, having them take down their wish list down to their top 5. But there are some issues that we have, and we probably need to look at addressing them, or at least have a plan for addressing them. A lot of them are compliance issues, and it's also accreditation issues for them. And then we have some life safety issues that we need to address with those. When you look at the firehouse with the ADA requirements right now, they do not have that access for ADA. And then they have an issue with response times, which we need to look at. How can we adjust that safely for those firefighters to be able to do that? The police, which I just got some great news, thank you, that the evidence room is actually getting more than they thought, and as they looked at the space that would be required. That is a compliance issue with the long term that we need to keep this evidence. We need to be able to keep it, store it safely, and be able to find it later. So that is a big concern. Administration, and also the police are working with a building that's from the 1940s also. So that's a big concern. Admin space is always going to be an issue. You guys are in a cubicle farm now. We probably need to have closer, some better private offices and things like that. Let's come to the Public Works one. We know about this. We've known about this. We've done nothing about it. We are at fault. I'm just going to put it out there. Okay? We have ADA issues there. We have mold issues there that have not been addressed or taken care of. And we have structural issues. We've put money out there for sidewalks because of what ifs. These are things that we know about and we have not done anything about. So I'm asking that we look at this for next year, We address these issues. Yes, I understand that part of that property is on the railroad property. However, talking with Mr. Kramer here, the cost of that rental is so insignificant over a 20-year period that right now it is not good for us to kind of get out of that contract. And the area that has the mold issue, we do own. So we're putting people, life safety, at risk there. So there's things that need to be done. So I do have a PowerPoint. I apologize because I was out of town. I could not get that out to everybody. I will have it fixed up, finished up with these details for everybody to take a look at. But I'm asking and pleading with you, please, let's get something done about these things, or at least have a plan in place. Thank you.
Tom, did you want to add that to the committee meeting? I know we didn't do it last time. Is that what you were? Okay. Okay.
Okay, any other task forces? Okay. Mrs. Hoffman, do we have any correspondence this evening?
I do. Mayor Fetty received a card from Charlene Barlow. It says, "Please extend my sincerest gratitude to the Police Department, Fire Department, and Public Works Department for their participation in a local neighborhood birthday parade." And the city also received a card from Chris Warner saying, "I want to thank the police officers, firefighters, and public works staff who participated in another neighborhood parade." And that's all I have.
Thanks, Sherry. I know you guys have been doing a lot of parades. I think it's the highlight of COVID. Okay, so we have a couple of bids this evening. All right, our first bid on here is the police vehicle equipment and installation.
Mayor, Council, it's that time of year to do our bids for our equipment on our police vehicles. We put it out to bid. We received one bid from 911 Fleet and Fire Equipment located in Florence. It was a bid to equip 4 patrol SUVs and 1 detective SUV. This includes equipment and labor. The cost of that through the bid process, they put the bid in, and it's $53,424.27. That is for all the equipment that goes into the police vehicle, the labor, tax, and everything. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you. And I want to thank Sherry for doing all the work she did on this for us. Appreciate it.
All right, our next is the walk-behind mowers, and then zero-turn mowers and online reverse salt auction. I'm assuming you're gonna handle all 3 of them.
Okay. Just a little bit of a backstory to the mowers that we're purchasing. In years past, the way we went about our grounds maintenance scheduling would be to cut a property, next day cut a different property, cut a property, and then so on and so forth. And it took us about 7 to 8 days to make a complete round throughout the city. And that doesn't include weekend days. So we're cutting the grass at places like the city building once every week and a half. And then if you were to add rain days in there, then that would just be another day added into the schedule. And sometimes we wouldn't be getting around to a property for up to 2 weeks. So what we tried to do is kind of revamp that schedule to where we're hitting all of our properties once a week, and then holding to that schedule. And so we've devised a plan in order to make that work, and yet maybe also be efficient enough to where we can also take on some of the contracted work that we have out there ongoing to reduce cost as well. So as part of that whole new procedure that we're doing, we started looking at how we can make efficiencies with equipment. So what we did is we put out the bid, walk-behind mowers, and what they do and why we were interested in two new walk-behind mowers is, first of all, it allows us to work more safely on sloped areas, and then also it lessens the amount of time that we can get out after a rain event. So because they're more lightweight, they still cut a wide width, and they're very quick, but being lightweight, we can get out quicker after a rain event. So what we did is we put that out to bid, and we received 5 bids, and the lowest bid being for a Skag walk-behind mower, 2 of them for $11,764. And the other mowers that we looked at is zero-turn mowers. That's something that we also don't have employed in our arsenal of equipment. So and what they do is they're truly efficiency. You know, it's kind of debatable within the Public Works Department what cuts better, our existing mowers or a zero-turn mower, but I believe they cut a better cut. They're more user-friendly, they're easier on our employees, and they're much more efficient. So, and we're hoping to, between these mowers that we're getting to improve our efficiency upwards of 20%, so that way we can, that's a full day worth of mowing that I'm hoping to improve on. And on those mowers, we received 8 bids, and we went with a low bid. It's a Bad Boy motor by Kubota Tractor, and 2 zero-turn mowers totaled $17,050. Any questions? All right, thank you.
So June 11th, we participated in the reverse salt bid, and we received 5 bids, with the low bid being Cargill at $65.70 a ton. That was up to 1,000-ton allotment. We also participate with Kenton County on a salt bid, which came in the lowest bid at $63.32 a ton, up to 1,000-ton allotment also. After talking with the mayor and with Mr. Kramer, we've decided we're going to accept the Kenton County bid of $63.32 and also accept the Cargill de-icing technology bid of $65.70 with no obligation of purchasing any, just in case, depending on the winter, of course. Last year, very mild winter. I think we purchased right around 500 tons. So that's the plan moving forward with the salt bid.
Any questions?
Hopefully.
Mayor,
We do have a full barn of about 1,800 tons currently. We only used about 200 ton last year with, I think we had 4 events total. A couple icings here and there that were out on some side streets or whatever, cleaning up. But the barn is full currently, so.
Yeah, not a question about the salt, but about the mowers. How are those funded? I was looking back, and I would have expected to see those as capital fund items, but I don't see them. We didn't budget for mowers and capital.
We purchased those in lieu of the leaf collection machine. So we talked last year with Matt about, well, we did refurbish the leaf machine. I think it was 52 or 55,000, and so that where we didn't need to replace that.
But for this fiscal year, are those capital fund expenditures or are they general fund expenditures?
I'm sorry, yeah, this was last year.
So we purchased those before last week.
I'm sorry, yes.
Okay.
All right. Moving forward, do we have any unfinished business that anybody would like to discuss? Mrs. Second?
I just wanted to extend my deepest sympathy to Connie Sawyers and her family John passed away this morning, and he was just a pillar of this community, and he was a former police officer. He worked for Senator Bunning for many, many years and was huge in the Rotary. And cancer took him this morning, and it's a deep loss for us all. So I just wanted to give my sincere sympathy to his family. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Okay, any other unfinished business? Okay, any new business? All right, moving on. Okay, we have legislation.
First is an ordinance amending the Erlanger zoning ordinance, adding outdoor seating regulations for taverns and restaurants within the commercial and business park zones, and amending the regulations for home occupations. As previously indicated, this is amending the prior ordinance that we passed back in December, only because of a couple clerical errors that were made in that through the translation of after it was passed at KCPC and some of the amendments they made to it from the original PDS regulation. So all this is doing is just comporting with what, frankly, we've already been following since December as it relates to outdoor seating. This is a second reading.
Okay, do I entertain a motion that we adopt as read? Mr. Meyer, Mrs. Pitts. Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Cahill,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Pitts,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Reckers,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hermes,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Skidmore, Ms. Sudkamp,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Cahill,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Skidmore.
Okay, motion carried.
Next, we have an ordinance of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, updating the pay scale for all Erlanger employees and non-elected officers and amending the title of finance clerk. You can see the underlined portions are what is being changed to, and the struck through is what previously was. And this is just amending that pay band for 2020. This is just a first reading.
Okay, Mrs. Hoffman, can you note that the first reading has been done?
Next, we have an ordinance of the City of Erlanger, Kentucky, amending the Houston Road, Erlanger Road Development Area previously established by City Ordinance Number 2457, renaming the development area as the Erlanger Commerce Center Development Area, reducing the boundaries of the development area, making certain findings related to the development area, and approving the execution of an amended and restated local participation agreement related to the development area. Again, quickly by summary, this is shrinking the size of the TIF district that was created 3 years ago, and it is on the recommendation of the developer and counsel for the developer, as well as Jim Parsons, who was the attorney who helped us with this matter. This is just a first reading.
Okay, Mrs. Hoffman, I ask that you note in the minutes the first reading.
All right, next we have a municipal order of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, amending the City of Erlanger personnel policies by amending the job descriptions titled Assistant City Clerk, Administrative Clerk, and Front Desk Clerk, and adding the job description for Permit Technician. Attached are the job changes to all of those jobs. Again, the struck-through section is what is being omitted, and the underlined section is what is being added. This does require a vote.
Okay, do I entertain a motion that we adopt this municipal order as read? Mr. Meyer, Mrs. Sedkamp, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, next we have a municipal order of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, declaring a vacancy in the membership of the Erlanger City Council and appointing a name to be placed in there as a member of the Erlanger City Council for the unexpired term of Kevin Burke. As we all know, Mr. Burke resigned effective in June. However, that resignation is not fully in effect until it is formalized at the next regular scheduled meeting, which is tonight, July 7th. So this municipal order A recognizes Kevin Burke resigning from the city, and then B slots an individual into that spot. So what I would ask, whoever's making this motion for the municipal order, just make that motion with the individual that you are recommending as a part of that motion to replace Mr. Burke.
Corinne?
I would like to make a motion for Randy Blankenship.
Do I have a second? Mrs. Sedkamp? Any discussion?
I wanted to talk about this just a little bit, mostly so the people of Erlanger knew some of the story here. At our last meeting, we went into executive session to discuss this, and Mr. Meyer, or Councilman Meyer, did a great job, I thought, articulating the idea that we wanted to try to make a selection for City Council that we could all vote with unanimously up here, and everybody seemed to like that idea. There were, he had also come up with 3 guidelines in trying to pick the person. One would be that they would be a past council member. The reason for this is this appointment is for 5 months, and a past council member would be familiar with Robert's Rules of Order and familiar with the job and duties of the council, and thought that that would be a good idea. That decision opens it up to about eight or 9 people in the city of Erlanger. Another guideline would be that the person wouldn't be on the ballot currently. We didn't want to give an unfair advantage to someone who might be running for council right now for the first time, or re-election. And then the third was that we didn't want someone that was going to be non-confrontational, non-controversial, someone that didn't have an axe to grind, no chip on their shoulder. So, you know, we talked about a lot of different names. Some of the more recent past council members included Bill Howard, Jim Brown, J.D. Dunhoff, Shane Longshore, Tom Rouse, Mark Otto, and Steve Montgomery. Some of those go back a little bit further. Some of the other ones that would also be candidates, but with some of the rules or some of the guidelines that we're going by, their name would kind of be taken out of the running. You know, Randy Blankenship, Steve Nipper, Frank Wickman, who hasn't been a council member but certainly knows Robert's Rules of Order. I'd also been approached by several other people through either email or phone call, Mike Jansing, Scott Kimmick, Ron Ferrier, and a few others as well. So, you know, unfortunately, I definitely will not be voting in favor of Randy Blankenship. I wish we could find someone that we all could agree on, but unfortunately, we cannot.
Any other discussion?
I would like to say something, please. I think you are expecting something that's not going to happen. Randy Blankenship is a man of his word. He's a class act. And I'm disgraced with you trying to put out that he might be anything other than that. And that's exactly what you've done. I also don't believe that you should have named all the people that we discussed in executive session. We do not talk about executive session. And now you've told the whole world. So I think we should just vote and get it over with. I'm tired of these games.
I'm sorry we can't agree on that, Patty. And I'm sorry that I don't feel the same way that you do.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? Let's do a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Meyer,
No, ma'am.
Ms. Reckers,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hermes,
No, ma'am.
Mr. Skidmore,
Yeah, the motion was made, I think, by Ms. Pitts, and it was seconded, I think, by Ms. Sudkamp, to put Randy Blankenship in the unexpired term.
Ms. Sudkamp,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Cahill,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Skidmore,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Cahill,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Pitts.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion carried.
All right, next we have a municipal order of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, approving the appointment of George, is it Bettis? As a member of the Board of Adjustment for the City of Erlanger to fill the vacancy therein resulting from the resignation of Rui Newsom. This also will require a motion and vote.
Okay, do I entertain a motion that we adopt this municipal order as read? Mr. Hermes? Oh, I sent out a memo. Owner of Greek to me, I sent out a memo. He sent in a bio. It's okay. Okay. We have a second? Yes, ma'am. Okay, Rebecca Reckers for a second. Any discussion on this matter? Okay, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carried.
Next, we have the adoption of a resolution of the City of Erlanger authorizing the filing of a coronavirus relief fund application for reimbursement of incurred expenses and CRF funds with the Department for Local Government, authorizing and directing the mayor to execute any documents which are deemed necessary by DLG to reimburse the city, and authorizing the mayor to act as the authorized correspondent for reimbursement. This is a part of the state's program allowing cities, I'm pretty sure it's based on population, to apply for a grant.
Am I allowed to talk about this, Jack?
Please.
I don't think I meant to discuss this at the last meeting, and I apologize. This is, the City of Erlanger is entitled to almost $1.4 million. I think it's 1.36. We've already submitted, I guess it was 2 weeks ago now, 1.2 million in police and fire salaries, and that was going to be the first submission. So this is just the resolution that needs to be passed by the local government to receive those monies, and then we'll be making a subsequent. Ed Bailey will be, making the final draw on that once we reach that next threshold, which will be the total of it. So I'm not sure if I don't remember emailing everybody and letting everybody know that, but that was something that we've been working on ever since the COVID, tracking expenses. About a month ago, I'm not sure if it was the state or the federal government that allowed us to use any salaries from police and fire, not just specific COVID expenses like originally thought, which, allowed Ed Bailey to go ahead and submit all salaries from March 1st up until the point of his submission. So I just want to kind of explain to everybody why we're having that. That's just something that we need to include with the submission. It's already been preliminarily approved for the 1.2 million that he submitted. I'm sorry. Oh,
Mr. Kramer, that's we're eligible for, right? Not necessarily entitled
Correct.
to?
correct, but
Okay.
with the new changes, we'll see.
Okay. Do I entertain a motion that we adopt this resolution as read? Mrs. Sudkamp, Mrs. Reckers, any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carried.
Next, we have a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute the interlocal agreement with the City of Ellesmere and the Erlanger-Ellesmere Board of Education. And again, this is just continuing the arrangement that we have with Ellesmere and the Erlanger-Ellesmere School District in the placement of SROs, I should say, in the 4 schools.
Okay, do I entertain a motion that we adopt this resolution as read? Mr. Hermes, Mrs. Sudkamp, Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, next we have the add-on item, which is the RV ordinance. And I'm going to go ahead and read the changes, and I do know that I've been contacted by a couple of council members that I think want to, during discussion, discuss the issue, and I apologize that you all don't have it in front of you. So the proposal being made in this ordinance is to basically make a couple changes to the current ordinance as it relates to the placement of vehicle, boats, and trailers. And I'll be honest, I'll just kind of read the whole section here because I think it's easiest. So the current proposed language in this ordinance is that the parking of any recreational vehicle, boat, or trailer on any occupied residential parcel of a residential zone, except in the rear yard of any lot, parcel, or of real estate, or only one of any such vehicles, boats, or trailers in any area of a side yard that is continuously paved with blacktop or concrete, provided that no part of such vehicle, boat, or trailer is within 1 foot of any point in the nearest boundary line, or 3, only one of any such vehicles, boats, or trailers in any driveway, provided that the area thereof occupied in any such vehicle, boat, or trailer is in addition to all other off-street parking. And then B, there is no more than one of any such vehicles, boats, or trailers parked, stored, or otherwise located in any portion of any driveway or any one lot or parcel thereof. The basic concept here is you're going to allow unlimited boats stored in the rear and then one on the side on a paved driveway. Is that fair, Mr. Meyer, based on what your intent was in this modification?
Yes, sir.
All right, so that is currently what we had a first reading on, that now is up for a second reading.
I'll make a motion that we adopt that as read.
It's an ordinance.
All right, we have a first and we have a second.
But we need a second before we can have discussion.
Oh, second. Okay. First by Mr. Meyer, second by Ms. Pitts. Any discussion? Yes.
So on this ordinance, this is 12 months a year. Okay. And there's no limit, you said? Okay. Right. Is there a way we can make an addendum to make it a limit of 2 maximum?
Again, council can make changes like that. I see those as non-substantive. I think going from unlimited to 2 or 3 or whatever, we could certainly make that as a floor amendment tonight.
Okay.
I don't know if you want more discussion before we do that.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I think one of the challenges is with the way that it's currently read or written, it leaves a lot to interpretation. So if I have a boat on a trailer, that is technically 2. So if you have someone that really wants to, that's gotten under someone's skin, they can certainly, interpret that and start citing them for being in violation, whether it be, the front, the back, or if I've got a larger piece of property and, maybe you do have a boat, an RV, and a trailer to haul stuff around, that certainly, limits the ability to do those things. I don't. I'm lucky to have the wheelbarrow.
Honestly, I mean, we used to have it to where it was just a few months a year, and that was it. And it was such a problem for codes that we made it all year long. And I agree to make it all year long, and I agree more than 1 is appropriate. But I honestly don't think more than 2 is needed, because I mean it could just be an eyesore, and you're having boats and trailers and whatever else, in somebody's front and backyard. I'm just throwing it out there. I was thinking 2 maximum. I don't know what everybody else wants to discuss.
So right now, do we have that issue? Are we citing people for having more than 1?
Yes.
Okay.
For
How
more
many-
than
how many-
one trailer, yes.
Okay.
For like multiple utility trailers, then yes, they're only allowed to have 1.
Have we cited any where there's a boat on a trailer and that counted it as 2? Okay.
And we have to, at some point, we have to figure out what do we want this to look like in the city. And I understand if we put it in your back and it is hidden, nobody's going to come looking. unless.
And that's
some-
essentially the intent of this, is
Yeah.
it still provides for the limitations on the front and the side and on an occupied piece of property, but in the back, it leaves a little bit more flexibility.
Okay. I mean, I live on a corner lot, so I could bring my jet skis and my.
Yeah, yours becomes a little bit different, right? But, I mean, just because of, what's determining.
Right, and I think that's where interpretation gets a little hairy sometimes with that. How come I don't have the same rights as everybody else just because I got a corner lot? So, I do worry about the numbers in the back. We had Stevenson Road there for a while. I don't want to see that again. That was ugly for a long time.
And there's many yards throughout the city that you do see the backyard. I mean, we have a ton of subdivisions, and you do see the backyard, and I do worry that it starts looking bad again like it used to. So that's why I brought up the limit of 2, or suggested it.
I mean, you could make a floor amendment. I mean, I guess first question, Mr. Meyer, do you want to keep your motion as is and has been seconded and take a vote, or do you want an opportunity to amend that motion?
Well, I mean, I guess certainly since we're up for discussion and where we're at, they can amend that as it is. So, I mean, if that amendment makes it through, by the group we have here, then so be it.
Okay. So, Ms. Pitts, is that your motion to make an amendment for the rear to be 2, maximum of 2?
It is, unless somebody has a better suggestion. I just threw it out there. I didn't know what everybody else's thoughts were on 2.
I guess my thoughts on that, I don't really see it as being, a huge problem. I mean, with those numbers and just trying to get things, into a rear yard, it just certainly gives a little bit more flexibility. Notwithstanding, where you've got the exceptions of corner lots and things. So
We also have lots that are very large, where it may not be seen by any neighbors or by the street or anything else, and I mean, I think there should be some provision that if they can't be seen, or that they're not creating a nuisance for someone else, that they should be allowed to have more than 2.
Well, and I guess that's what we're at, since this is part of the nuisance ordinance, we're being asked to determine what do we, in our opinion,
So-
is that nuisance.
What I'm hearing is the issue really the number or whether it can be seen from the road? I mean, if you had 10, and to be frank, we're talking about one property realistically here.
Well, there's a few others too.
But
yeah.
the one is kind of what brought this issue to light.
Correct.
That has 8 to 10 that are concealed. Fair. So if they're concealed, and that would obviously deal with the corner lot issue, because frankly, Mr. Hahn and I were just dealing with a corner lot issue last couple of days. I mean, those are always the nightmare to deal with from an enforcement perspective, because all of these rules don't always contemplate the corner lot, right? They really don't. I mean, is it really a number issue, and is it more if we just made a modification to the language that in the rear it has to be concealed from the road? I mean, does that accomplish it, or do we want to put the number?
I mean,
this is your all's
No,
call.
I would say, Mr. Gatlin, yes. I mean, because if you don't see them, then is that necessarily a nuisance from the neighboring homes?
Depends how well your neighbors like you, I guess.
You can't see the whole compound out in Sherborne, but it's a nuisance. I'm just saying. You can see their junk from space.
So concealed from, I guess you're right? I mean, if the space station has standing to,
So you're saying we continue to ignore that property? The one you can see from space?
And in the past, we've had people calling codes because they don't like their neighbor, right, Tom? We've had that happen plenty of times, where even though you can't see it from the road, the neighbor can see it, and then they're complaining. And I think that the two just helps our codes too. So. Yeah, yeah.
That seems workable.
Are we talking about, there's one allowed in front and then two in the back? You keep saying side.
Yeah,
Or
we're
am I
talking the
missing
back.
something?
Still limited
So,
to one,
one in the front, two in the back?
one front and side. One front or side, two in the back. Side. Correct. So essentially the only, yeah, so the only amendment to the ordinance as read thus far is to limit to two in the rear yard. All right. I'll second that, if that's a motion.
But you're also wanting to leave in there about the parcel in the residential zone. That was another addition,
Yes.
right? So just so everybody's clear, we're not just changing the numbers. He's still, Mr. Meyer still wants to include that it's not a residential area, it's a residential parcel
Correct.
of a residential zone. Just to okay, yeah, I just want to make sure we're aware.
Right, and I think, well, yes, potentially if you have that, but it also, I think takes away some of the ambiguity, right? Are you going to cite the Board of Education because they had two trailers in that parking lot?
Right.
Right?
Well, that's why I think that's important. I want to make sure
Yeah.
that's left in there.
Get your mic.
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Gowan.
I apologize. I'm not loud enough. The motion that's currently on the table then would be to amend this second reading to add two as the restriction to rear yard, but everything else that was done in the first reading would be the same. And we have a first and second on that, so now it'd be time for a vote.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Amendment passed.
We gotta.
Now we need to do
A vote on
the
the
vote
ordinance.
on the ordinance. Okay, so that's a roll call vote. Any other discussion before we move on? All right. Roll call, please.
Ms. Reckers,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Pitts,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Cahill,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Skidmore, Mr. Cahill,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Sedkamp,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Skidmore, Mr. Hermes.
Yes, ma'am.
Motion carried. All right. Do we have any announcements? Okay. Do I entertain a motion that we adjourn? Mr. Meyer, Mrs. Reckers. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Have a good evening.